Now, the table is always hot with current events and social issues, but sometimes the heat can get a little intense. Let's turn the temp down, take a breather, and get into this week's topic cool down. Andre, what do you have for us?
So I wanted to ask Daquon, what do you think about the idea of submitting to your partner in a relationship? I'm screaming!
Gag. No, I think that. How do I put this? I'm not like a submitting type person. Like it may be cute every now and then, but like
Yeah,
I'm not going to submit like I'm not going to like submit to you. Like that's
yeah,
not how it is. I'm a whole human being, you're a whole human being. Let's
yeah,
both be whole human beings and like have our independence but also coexist together. Like that is what I want in a relationship. I don't want somebody to dominate me and have authority over me because like let's be real, I have problems with authority. I do not like authority. If you tell me, oh, you can't do that, no, you need to do this, you can't do that, I'm gonna be like, why the fuck not? Like I'm gonna do what I want to do and I'm gonna push back against that authority. That's just who I am as a person. And I also think that a lot of times we have these ideas of submission to your partner that's very antiquated. We have it that there's one person that must be submissive and
hmm
one person that must be dominant. We have this kind of heteronormative idea of
what
what
dominance is, yeah.
submission and dominance is, even in queer relationships. And it's very antiquated and very not much me and how I want to have a relationship with somebody,
Yeah.
because I think that to a certain extent, if you are happy with submitting, you are happy with submitting. But I also think that a really healthy relationship has that balance of both partners or however many partners are in this situation, taking that ebb and flow of being submissive and being dominant, where, there are some times when somebody wants to take the lead and be a little bit more dominant, and that's fine, and they're allowed to do that. But I just don't think I'm down for just like these rigid roles of just like it has to be this way and stay this way. Like, no, like let's do what we need to do and like coexist and be independent and love each other and like not worry about submitting.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people really don't understand what dominance and submission truly is. Oftentimes, people confuse being dominant or submissive with having control or losing control, and that's not what it is. True dominance is not demanding control. It's creating a secure space safe enough to take care of and meet someone else's needs. It's about providing someone with the opportunity to be free of a certain responsibility because you have earned enough trust from them that they know without a shadow of a doubt that you'll take care of it. In true submission, is relinquishing a burden or responsibility in your life for someone else to take care of. It's about letting go and knowing that when you fall, there is someone there to catch you. Both sides of the coin require an equal level of vulnerability and trust that has to be met in order for it to be successful. And it's not always what you think. Like sometimes submission isn't the full BDSM fantasy that people automatically think of. Like it could be as small as trusting your partner to pay a bill that they agreed to pay for. Or for dominance, it could be something as small as taking your partner out for dinner and covering the entire tab. There's nothing wrong with dominance and submission unless someone's needs in the relationship aren't being met. And I do believe
Mhm.
that there is also this rigid nature of it that I think people need to get out of too, because just because somebody may be dominant in one area of life doesn't mean they're dominant in all areas of it. So like
Right.
I think it's very much so a give and take, push and pull kind of relationship where your partner may be dominant in certain areas, but more submissive in other areas. Your partner might be more dominant in cleaning the house and taking care of these things, But there might be more submissive when it comes to the financial aspect, where that's where you pick up the slack as a dominance, and then things of that nature. So I think it's a lot of this. It's a lot of volleying back and forth, and I think that's what you were kind of getting to as well, as this
Yeah.
kind of rigid nature that a lot of people put in being in a dominant or submissive kind of relationship, because there isn't a dominant or a submissive. There are people with submissive and dominant qualities, just as we all have different dominant and submissive qualities, because we are thinking human beings. We're living beings. We are more than just one thing. We exist in so many different intersections in our personality and in our nature. So I think that, there may be someone who may seem more dominant in a relationship, but you have no idea what happens behind closed doors. You have no idea in what ways people submit. And I get really tired of hearing a lot of men talk about how women need to submit to them, and I need my woman to submit to me. And it's like, okay, but have you created a space for that woman to be vulnerable? Have you created a space for her to feel like she's able to let you take on the reins? Or have you been a little, what I'm saying? Like, have you been bullshitting around? Do you see what I'm saying? And I
Right.
think
Are you
also,
likable? Do you have a
are you likable?
personality?
Do you have a personality? Do you work? Do you have a job? You know what I'm saying? Do you have ambition? You can have ambition, but I'm like, I always think of that little phrase, that Beyonce song. Anyway,
Yeah.
but no, but like I said, I think that, every man is always talking about I'm an alpha male. I need a beta woman. I need somebody who's going to do what I say. And it's kind of like, but they always seem to forget that a partnership is give and take. You're not entering into a master slave situation. You are entering into a partnership, a loving relationship with someone, which means that there may be aspects of you that you're dominant, or there may be areas in your life where you are dominant, but that does not mean that you are dominant in everything, or that you should be dominant in everything. And I think that a lot of times people forget too that being dominant all the time is draining.
Mm.
Being
Mm-hmm.
submissive to someone all the time is draining. You need to have someone take the reins every now and then. You need to have that back and forth. What do you think, Daquon?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that there needs to be this ebb and flow of just like, if you cover the full tab this time, let me cover it next time. Or, like
Exactly.
have that give and take in a relationship so the burden doesn't fall on all on one person. And
Exactly.
also, even when you were talking about how like there may be different forms of somebody may be more dominant when it comes to cleaning, somebody may be more dominant when it comes to finance, finding that balance to where you can switch it up. And even if you're not that dominant leading
Yep.
person, you can do that because that is
back and forth.
that
Yeah.
is a love language. Acts of service is a love language. So if somebody is always cleaning the house in the relationship and you clean the entire house, I'm telling you right now that could be one of the best things you can do. That can be one of the most sexiest things you can do, is taking on that responsibility that somebody else usually does.
And that's where I go back with the volleying thing. It's like, at the end of the day, yes, I may have the strength in this area, but because you're submitting to me in this area, you're able to see what I'm doing that makes this so easy for me. So you're able to say, okay, I see how she did this. I see how she took care of this and the fourth. Now I can take those skills when I want to be the dominant person in this area. I can also learn from these things. So when someone is being dominant, doesn't mean that, okay, fuck it all, I don't think about it anymore, I'm done. It's being like, I know you got it, but I'm also learning from you. I'm growing from you. You're teaching me how to be dominant in areas that I've been submissive in, because there's things that people are just more, there are things that people have a fear of that makes them retreat into a submissive position. So like, you may not have an understanding of how to cook, so you retreat in a submissive position, let somebody tell you what to do, and you do it, and they let them do it. But I think there's something to be said about, yes, I may be submissive in this area right now. But as I'm learning from someone who's more dominant in this area, I will grow and change and evolve.
Right.
And that's what all relationships should be. It should be an evolution. Now, so many children grow up never knowing the full scope of what their culture has contributed to society and history. So it's time for a change. Let's take a pause, rewind, and remind the world just how we did that. On the official website for Remembering Billie Holiday, we learned that she was born April 7th, April 7th, 1915, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and was a superstar of her day. She first rose to prominence in the 1930s with a unique style that reinvented the conventions of modern singing and performance. More than 80 years after making her first recording, Billie's legacy continues to embody what it is elegant and cool in contemporary music. Holiday's complicated life and her genre defying autobiography, Lady Sings the Blues, made her a cultural icon. The evocative, soulful voice, which she boldly put forth as a force for good, turned any song she sang into her own. Today, Billie Holiday is remembered for her musical masterpieces, her songwriting skills, creativity, and courageous views on inequality and justice.
Black women.
Motherfucking black women!
And I have to say, if you have ever listened to Billie Holiday's version of Strange Fruit,
It's the only one. What do you mean? There is no other version. What are you talking about, Daquon?
it will do something to you.
It's transcendent, honestly.
In CNN's Profiles of Perseverance, we learn that Paul Robeson is the definition of a Renaissance man, an athlete, actor, author, lawyer, singer, and activist. An All American football star at Rutgers University, where he was class valedictorian, Robeson earned a law degree at Columbia and worked for a New York City law firm until he quit in protest over its racism. In the 1920s, he turned to the theater, where his commanding presence landed him lead roles in Eugene O'Neill's All God's Children Got Wings and The Emperor's Jones. He later sang Old Man River, which became his signature tune in stage and film productions of Showboat. Robeson performed songs in at least 25 different languages and became one of the most famous concert singers of his time. He was perhaps best known for performing the title role in Shakespeare's Othello, which he reprised several times. One production in 1943 and 44 became the longest running Shakespeare play in Broadway history. Robeson also used his celebrity status to advance human rights causes around the world, but the repressive climate of the 1950s caused him to become blacklisted. He stopped performing, his passport was revoked, and his songs disappeared from the radio for years. Nevertheless, Robeson said, quote, "The artist must elect to fight for freedom or slavery. I have made my choice. I had no alternative." End quote.
Black people. And I think that kind of story is so compelling because like it really is. He could have easily just kept his mouth shut. He could have easily
Right.
just said, I'm going to make my money, I'm going to stack my bread, and I'm going to call it a day. But he chose to fight, even knowing the risks. And I think
Right.
that that's what people oftentimes forget, is that the level of the amount of people who have been blackballed for being on the right side of history and have lost so many Eartha Kitt, being one of them as well. Like, even Billie Holiday, when she did The Strange Fruit, there's
Mhm.
so many people who have trailblazed pathways and having lost everything they worked so hard for and have changed the world because of it.
Right. It's just so powerful, especially like as an artist and a creative. Like I think the best art is art that will change the world. Is art that is trying to push the envelope of justice further. And when you have a platform as an artist, like Robeson said, you are either fighting for justice or you're fighting for oppression. And it's your choice to make.
Exactly. As always, thank you all so much for watching and keep the conversation going down in the comment box below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you are listening to us on our podcast, please rate and review on whatever platform you're using. You can also follow our podcast on Instagram and TikTok at the Melanin Margin for updates of new content.
And if you'd like to follow each of us, our handles are at Daquon MUE.
And at Andre Talks a Lot.
Now, we will see you all next week on the Melanin Margin, where our goal is always to bring the marginalized to the spotlight in any way we can. Goodbye now.